So whoever thought, growing up, that you get to a point in the country where, you had a different opinion than somebody nearby or next door or down the street or on the internet. And they would just shut you down and say, you know what? You're not allowed to speak anymore. I mean, whoever would have thought America would be a place where the First Amendment got torched? But that seems to be where we are today, Tudor, more and more and more.
Yeah, our next guest knows a little bit about that. Gavin Wax, he's the president of the New York Young Republicans Club, and he was recently suspended from Twitter. What happened? What did you do?
Well, that's a good question. I'm still not fully sure how I broke any Twitter rules or regulations. I simply was a Republican conservative tweeting online. I made some critical tweets of Attorney General Barr, who is a Republican and appointed by Trump, and I guess they found offense with that tweet where I criticized AG Barr for not coming down harder against Antifa, and they suspended me until I deleted the tweet in question, and then they still kept the suspension up for about 24 hours. So it's a real shame that you can't have an opinion in this country anymore without big tech laying the hammer down on you.
Yeah, to say the least. And then from there, your neighbors took up the cause. Your friendly, loving, all-inclusive, forgiving neighbors started tacking up your picture the old-fashioned way, like a cat's missing, except they wanted to identify you as a white nationalist. We had to zero in on Mr. Wax and get to the bottom of it, didn't they? I mean, how creepy, how dangerous is that?
Yeah, it's very creepy. I just moved to a nice new apartment, and I guess they found out where I live because I took a picture of the church across the street, and I guess they were able to pinpoint the church. I don't think they were my neighbors, though, thankfully. So they put up about 100 posters around my neighborhood, basically attacking me for going on your network, going on Steve Bannon's War Room, and a whole slew of other things. And the funny thing that I noticed was that a lot of people just took the posters down themselves. I was taking them down, my friends were taking them down, but when we found a bunch of them, they were already ripped off from the polls, and people had already scribbled out my information. So I think my neighbors were kind of sick of this and kind of looked past it. But I'm grateful no one actually looks at these things when they're hanging to begin with. But Antifa will go to whatever lengths they can to shut down opposition. It's really a fascist type of tactic from a group that supposedly prides themselves at being anti-fascist.
Yeah, but it's dangerous, too, when you have somebody taking your address and putting it out there like this. Did you hear anything from folks on the right saying, hey, this has gone too far, we've got to do something to stop this?
I mean, I've had support from, friends in the movement. I know Breitbart did a piece on this, and a few others commented on how despicable this was. But really, I mean, these tactics are going to continue until we really lay down the gauntlet on Antifa, which was actually the reason I originally got banned from Twitter, because I called for tougher stances on Antifa. They need to be treated as a domestic terror organization, as they are. I mean, we've heard about this, but it doesn't seem to be happening. The police and the intelligence officials, we know their cells, we know who they are, we know where they operate out of. We need to come down on them and treat them like the people that they are, and they're not good people. These are people that will resort to violence to squash political opponents, and it's really reprehensible what they're doing.
Don't you find it remarkable, though, Gavin, that those on the left are so oblivious to what the left really is over the last 125 years, to not realize that once they're done gobbling up you or me or Tudor, they turn themselves inside out and they attack each other. Do they not realize the firing squad becomes circular? It's inevitable. That's the way the left works. They've got this thing in their hand called a cell phone. It's a supercomputer. They've got Google, right? They can figure these things out. At least you would think so.
They're not good students of history. I mean, every old leftist revolution always resulted in the original revolutionaries being killed off by the new guard. I mean, you saw it in the book we all used to read when we were growing up, Animal Farm. It was very similar. I guess they never paid attention when we had those classes. But I mean, the left right now is so oblivious. I mean, they actually think just because an organization claims to be anti-fascist that they are anti-fascist. Like, they can't think beyond just the naming and branding. I mean, just look at their actions. Look at what they do. Look at how they cover their face. They dress in all black. They resort to violence. Like, who cares what they call themselves? I could call myself, the anti-bad guy league, but if I go around stealing candy from babies, I'm still the bad guy. It doesn't change anything.
So speaking of stealing candy from babies, you have a governor there and a mayor who seems to be stealing everything from the people of New York City. So you have the Staten Island bar owner who stayed open. I want to show you a video very quickly before we have to go. We have this owner who ran into a police officer. This is the Mac Public House. Watch this and then we'll talk. So you see that he has run into his car already. The cops have come up. Now he is trying to run out of the situation. Ultimately, they say this police officer did break both of his legs. The man broke both of his legs in the vehicle. We have about a minute left. What do these restaurant owners do? I'm not condoning this in any way. A lot of people say that people who are standing by him are condoning this. But is this just creating chaos and havoc in the city?
Look, it's an unfortunate incident what happened, but none of this would have happened to begin with if we didn't have such ridiculous rules and regulations on these restaurants. I mean, this guy is fighting for his livelihood. He's fighting for his business. He's fighting to make a living. And Big Cuomo and de Blasio are coming down hard on him with all their might, and they're putting all these police and law enforcement resources on a law-abiding citizen who's just trying to sell burgers. Meanwhile, we've had the highest rates of murders and shootings and other crimes in this city. I mean, we're really living in an upside-down world. But restaurants are going to have to stand up, because if until they do, these things are going to continue to happen, and it's a sad state of affairs.
Somebody's going to have to stand up. Gavin Wax, we appreciate you standing up right here on America's Voice Live. Gavin Wax, president of the New York Young Republicans Club. Thank you for being with us here on this Wednesday. We've got some final thoughts and some parlor questions for you on social media, courtesy of Tudor Dick. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.